The photograph was still warm from her pocket when she slammed it on my desk. A blonde girl, 19 years old, smiling at the camera with the kind of joy that comes from not yet knowing the world can be cruel. Behind her, Arizona sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and red. The photo was taken 3 weeks ago. The girl in it had been silent for 5 days. "Everyone keeps telling me to wait," the woman said, her voice shaking. "They say she's 19, she's an adult, she's probably just having fun. But I know my sister, and I know something is wrong." I looked up at Emma Hartley. She had driven 300 miles through the night to reach my office. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling as they gripped the edge of my desk. Most sheriffs would have sent her away with a pat on the shoulder and hollow reassurance. I wasn't most sheriffs. "Tell me everything," I said. What I didn't know yet was that this photograph, this terrified sister, and this missing girl would unravel something I thought I'd left buried years ago. Something dark that had been hunting in my county. While I wasn't looking, and the clock was already counting down. It was 7. In the morning when Emma Hartley walked into the Sagebrush County Sheriff's Department. The sun had barely cleared the mountains, and the desert air still held the ghost of night's coolness. She'd driven straight through from Flagstaff, no sleep, sustained only by coffee and fear. The deputy at the front desk barely looked up from his computer. "Help you?" he asked, his tone suggesting he'd rather not. "My sister is missing," Emma said. "Sophie Hartley. She's been gone for 5 days." The deputy Jenkins, according to his name plate, finally looked at her. "How old?" 19. He sighed, a sound I'd heard too many times before. The sound of someone deciding a case wasn't worth their time. "Ma'am, 19 is an adult. She probably met someone, decided to extend her trip. You know how kids are at that age." "Sophie isn't like that," Emma insisted, her voice rising. "She calls me every single day. Every single day. She hasn't answered her phone in 5 days. Her messages aren't delivering. Something is wrong." Jenkins pulled up a form on his computer with the enthusiasm of someone filling out tax paperwork. "I'll file a report, but honestly, most of these resolve themselves. Give it a few more days." I heard the conversation from my office. Something in Emma's voice, not the volume, but the quality of the fear, made me stand up and walk to the doorway. "Deputy Jenkins," I said quietly, "I'll take this one." Emma turned, and I saw the desperation in her eyes. The kind that comes from being dismissed over and over when you know in your bones that something is terribly wrong. "Come with me," I said. In my office, Emma sat across from my desk and told me everything. Sophie had come to the area 3 weeks ago for seasonal work at the Sunset Ridge Resort, a high-end spa and retreat about 40 miles into the desert. It was supposed to be a 3-month position, good money. Beautiful location, a chance to save for college. For the first 2 weeks, Sophie had been in constant contact. Photos of the desert, stories about her coworkers, excitement about the tips she was making. Then, 5 days ago, the messages stopped. Not gradually, not a slow fade. Just stopped at Emma had called the resort. They told her Sophie had quit unexpectedly and left without notice. Didn't even pick up her final paycheck. "That's not Sophie," Emma said firmly. "She needed that money. She wouldn't just walk away from it." I made notes. My training, the training most people didn't know I had, deactivating instincts I'd tried to bury. Did she mention anyone specifically? Any problems? No, but in our last phone call, she sounded distracted. She said there were interesting people working there. When I asked what she meant, she changed the subject. Emma's voice cracked. "I should have pushed. I should have. You did nothing wrong," I said firmly. "You're here now. That matters." After Emma left, I sat at my computer and started digging. The Sunset Ridge Resort checked out legitimate business, high ratings, wealthy clientele. But when I cross-referenced it with county records, something made me pause. Over the past 18 months, 3 young women had disappeared after taking temporary jobs in the area. All were from out of state. All were initially dismissed by law enforcement as adults making choices. 2 had been found dead 6 months later. The third was still missing. I pulled the case files, spreading them across my desk like puzzle pieces. Madison Torres, 22, worked at a guest ranch. Disappeared in May of last year. Body found 3 months later in a remote ravine. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. But there was something else, a burn mark on her left shoulder. A symbol that investigators hadn't been able to identify. The case went cold. Kayla Brennan, 20, worked at a local vineyard. Disappeared in October. Body found 2 months later. Same burn mark. Same cause of death. Ashley Kim, 21. Waitress at a tourist restaurant. Disappeared in March. Still missing. I studied the photographs of the burn marks, enhanced and cataloged in the evidence files. The symbol was distinctive 3 curved lines intertwined in a pattern. That looked vaguely tribal, but wasn't from any tradition. I recognized that. My stomach tightened. I'd seen this symbol before. Not here. Not in Arizona, but in case files from another life. When I'd been someone else entirely, I opened my laptop and accessed a database I technically no longer had clearance for. Old credentials never properly deactivated. A security flaw I'd never reported because sometimes you needed doors that others thought were locked. I searched for the symbol. The result made my hands go. Cold dancing sing, serpents, mark, known. Signature of human trafficking operation dismantled. 2015-2016. Primary suspect. Vincent Carver, 43, convicted of trafficking, kidnapping, and aggravated assault. Sentenced to 15 years federal prison. Asterisk, asterisk, I remembered Vincent Carver. I'd been undercover when I helped build the case against him. He was methodical, patient, intelligent. He targeted vulnerable women migrant workers, seasonal employees, people whose disappearance wouldn't be noticed quickly. He'd mark them, brand them like property. The symbol was his signature. His claim of ownership. My hands were shaking as I checked his current status. Asterisk, asterisk. Released 2022. Time served with reduction for good behavior. Current address, Tucson, Arizona. Asterisk, asterisk, 2 hours from Sagebrush County. I picked up my phone and called a number I hadn't dialed in years. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. Agent Chen. Sarah, it's Mara. Silence. Then Mara Callahan. I thought you'd disappeared into witness protection or retirement. Or, Jesus, it's good to hear your voice. What's wrong? Vincent Carver. Where is he? Carver. I could hear her typing. Completed his parole 18 months ago. He's technically a free man now. Why? Because I think he's hunting again. And I have a missing girl who fits his pattern perfectly. Sure. 3 bodies in 18 months, Sarah. All with the serpent's mark. All seasonal workers. Out of state, dismissed as runaways. He's here. In my county. I'll initiate a federal investigation. But it'll take days to mobilize resources. I don't have days, I said. I might not even have hours. Hung up and looked at Sophie's photograph again. Smiling, alive, unaware that she'd been selected by a predator who'd spent years in prison, learning to be more careful. But Vincent Carver didn't know. Something the sheriff hunting him wasn't just local law enforcement, she was the federal agent who'd put him away the first time. And this time, she wasn't working alone in the shadows. This time, she had a badge, a team, and every resource she needed. That the hunt was on. The Sunset Ridge Resort looked like something from a luxury magazine. White adobe buildings, ornamental fountains, infinity pools overlooking mountain vistas. Wealthy guests in designer swimwear lounged in the morning sun, completely unaware that something predatory was operating in their paradise. I brought Deputy Rosa Mendez with me. She was sharp, observant, and one of the few people in my department I trusted completely. The manager, Richard Bowman, met us in his office, all glass and chrome. Air conditioning running cold enough to make me shiver after the desert heat outside. Sheriff Callahan, he said smoothly. How can I help you? Sophie Hartley. Employee who allegedly quit 5 days ago. He tapped on his computer. Ah, yes. She simply didn't show up for her shift. Sent a text message saying she was leaving. It happens with seasonal workers. They come, they go. Can I see the message? He turned his monitor. The text was generic, impersonal, asterisk. I've decided to leave. Thank you for the opportunity. Asterisk, it didn't sound like the enthusiastic girl Emma had described. Did she have friends here? People she spent time with? I wouldn't know. We have dozens of seasonal employees. Rosa leaned forward. How do you hire them? Through a staffing agency? Desert Staffing Solutions. They handle all our seasonal recruitment. I made a note. And they conduct background checks on their own employees. That's their responsibility. Yes. Outside, Rosa and I sat in the truck with the air conditioning blasting. Staffing agency, Rosa said. That's a good cover. Access to personal information, placement records. Addresses exactly what someone like Carver would want. We drove to Desert Staffing Solutions, a small office in a strip mall, sandwiched between a laundromat and a tax preparation service. The interior smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. The owner, Dale Simmons, was a nervous man in his 50s, with thinning hair and a tie that had seen better days. He went pale the moment I introduced myself. Is there a problem, Sheriff? I need information about some of the workers you've placed. Specifically Madison Torres, Kayla Brennan, Ashley Kim, and Sophie Hartley. His face went from pale to gray. Those are the girls who? Disappeared or died. Yes, who has access to your employee files? Just me and my administrative assistant named Vincent Carver. But he's excellent, very reliable. The world narrowed to a single point. When did he start working here? Dale checked his records. About 18 months ago. Exactly when the disappearances began. Where is he now? He took some time off. Said he was visiting family. I pulled out my phone. Rosa, I need an APB on Vincent Carver. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. Suspected in multiple homicides. Dale's eyes went wide. Vincent, but he's so helpful, so quiet. That's how people like him operate, I said. I need every file he touched. Every employee record he accessed. And I need it now. Working through the night, we built a profile. Vincent hadn't just been working at the agency, he'd been selecting victims. Young women alone from out of state, with families distant enough that their disappearance wouldn't trigger immediate alarm. Sophie Hartley was his latest. I studied the pattern from his previous crimes. He kept victims for 3 to 5 days before killing them. Sophie had been missing for 5 days. We were at the edge of the window, using geographic profiling. Skill from my FBI DISI triangulated possible locations. Carver needed isolation, access to water, a structure that could hold someone against their will. I cross-referenced property records, lease agreements. Abandoned buildings. One property stood out, an old mining station 40 miles into the desert. Registered to an LLC that traced back through layers of shell companies too. Vincent Carver. Remote. Perfect. Terrible. I assembled a small tactical team, Rosa, and 2 deputies with advanced training. Going in with full force might spook Carver into killing Sophie before we could reach her. We needed precision. I called Emma. Found something. I can't promise anything, but we're moving now. Please, she whispered. Please bring my sister home. I'll do everything I can. The desert at night is a different world. Temperature drops 40 degrees, darkness so complete it swallows light. We approached the mining station with night vision equipment, moving silent as shadows across sand that had witnessed 100 years of human desperation. Through thermal imaging, I saw 2 heat signatures inside the main structure. One was moving, pacing, agitated. One was stationary. 2 still. We moved in with practiced precision. I took point muscle memory from operations I'd tried to forget, guiding each step. Rosa covered the rear entrance. The 2 deputies flanked. The door wasn't locked. That should have been our first warning. Inside, the air smelled of rust and fear and something chemical I couldn't place. Old mining equipment cast strange shadows in our flashlight beams. Vincent Carver stood in the back room, arranging tools on a workbench with the calm precision of someone preparing for surgery. In the corner, bound and gagged but breathing, was Sophie Hartley. Her left shoulder bore a fresh burn, the serpent's mark. Still red and blistering. Vincent turned when he heard us. For just a moment, there was recognition in his eyes. "You?" he said softly. "The agent? I thought you'd disappeared." "I thought you were in prison," I replied, weapons steady. Looks like we both had surprises. His hand moved toward something on the bench. Rosa's voice cut through. "Don't." He froze, then smiled the same smile I remembered from interrogation rooms years ago. Cold, confident. "You won't shoot, Agent Callahan. You need me alive for testimony. Federal prosecutors love living witnesses." "I'm not Agent Callahan anymore," I said. "I'm Sheriff Callahan. And out here in the desert, we have different rules about protecting our people." Rosa and the deputies moved in. For a second, I thought Vincent might try something stupid. Then his shoulders sagged and he raised his hands. "Smart choice," I said. We secured him, called for medical transport, and cut Sophie free. She was traumatized, dehydrated, injured but alive. 3 more minutes. And she wouldn't have been. The hospital in Tucson was quiet at 3 in the morning. Sophie was in a private room, sedated, an IV in her arm, delivering fluids and antibiotics. The burn on her shoulder was bandaged, treated. But it would leave a scar. Emma sat beside her sister's bed, holding her hand, crying softly. "You saved her," she said when she saw me in the doorway. "How can I ever thank you?" "Live well," I said. "Both of you. That's all the thanks I need." Federal agents arrived at dawn to take custody of Vincent Carver. Agent Sarah Chen pulled me aside in the parking lot where the first light of morning was painting the desert in shades of pink and gold. 3 connected cases, she said. Bodies we couldn't link. You put it together in 72 hours. I knew how he thought. I'd been inside his operation before. You should come back. FBI could use someone with your instincts. I shook my head. My place is here. Protecting people who get dismissed and ignored. Making sure families like Emma's don't have to scream to be heard. Sarah nodded slowly. For what it's worth, you're doing more good here than you ever did in the Bureau. That afternoon, I received a call from Madison Torres's parents. They'd heard about Vincent's arrest. Our daughter, Mrs. Torres said, voice breaking. Will there finally be justice? Yes, I promised. He'll answer for every life he took. A week later, I drove out to the ravine where Madison's body had been found. Then to the canyon where Kayla's remains were discovered. At each site, I planted wildflowers, desert marigolds, and bluebonnets. Flowers that would survive the harsh environment. It was something I'd started doing in my FBI days. A way to honor the ones who couldn't be saved. Rosa came with me to the second site. She watched me plant the flowers in silence, then said, "You've done this before?" "Many times. Does it help?" "Not really, but it feels wrong not to." Sophie Hartley visited my office before she went home to Flagstaff. Her arm was in a sling, the burn bandaged beneath her sleeve. But her eyes were stronger than I'd expected. "Deputy Mendez told me you used to work for the FBI," she said. "That you put Carver away years ago." "I did." "So he knew you. When you found me, he recognized you." "He did." She was quiet for a moment. "You could have let someone else handle this. Stayed out of it. Avoided him. That's not who I am. I know." She reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "You didn't just save me. You've saved whoever he would have taken next. And the one after that? You broke the cycle." After she left, I sat alone in my office as evening light slanted through the blinds. I thought about all the hunts, the ones I'd won, the ones I'd arrived too late for, the ones that still haunted my dreams. Vincent Carver would spend the rest of his life in a federal supermax prison. The families had closure, and Sophie Hartley would live, would heal, would go on to build a life. Some hunts never truly end. The scars remain, the memories linger, but nightmares persist. But sometimes you break the cycle, and that, I'd learned, was the kind of victory that mattered most. Not the dramatic rescue or the headlines or the COMMENDATIO. Us, the quiet knowledge that because you showed up, someone else's sister came home. That night, I sat on my porch with Echo at my feet, watching stars emerge in the vast Arizona sky. The desert was silent except for wind through sage and the distant call of a coyote. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma, asterisk, Sophie's asleep. Really asleep. First time in days. Thank you for giving us our lives back. Asterisk, I didn't reply. Some things don't need words. I thought about Vincent Carver in his cell, about the 3 women who didn't make it home, about Sophie who did. I thought about the badge I wore and the one I used to carry, about the difference between hunting in shadows and hunting. In daylight, both had their place. Both required courage, but only one let me sleep at night. The desert keeps its secrets well. Bodies disappear in sand, evidence erodes in wind. Time buries truth beneath dust and distance. But better at finding those secrets than the desert is at hiding them. And as long as I wear this badge, no predator will hunt in my county without answering for it. I'm the voice for those who can't. Speak. The justice for those who've been forgotten, the wall between the innocent and those who would harm them. Some people think small town sheriffs don't matter much. That real law enforcement happens in cities, in federal buildings, in places with resources and technology. But out here, in counties that maps forget, in towns too small for most people to notice, we're often the only thing standing between someone's sister and a shallow grave in the desert, and that matters. That matters more than anything. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of sage and creosote, and the promise of rain that might not come. Echo shifted against my leg. Content and loyal. And I, Mara Callahan, former FBI agent, current sheriff, permanent guardian of the forgotten, sat in the gathering darkness and knew that tomorrow I'd do it all again, because some people need saving and some people are called to save them. And when those two meet, that's when justice happens. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady, patient, relentless. Like the desert itself, eternal and unforgiving to those who underestimate it.